Welcome to The Money Hour with host Tina Mitchell and co-host Keelan Harvey. Tina Mitchell, MLO 145420, and Keelan Harvey, MLO 1330075, are licensed loan originators with Gateway Mortgage Group, LLC, and MLS 7233. The views expressed by the speakers on the following program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Gateway Mortgage Group, LLC, nor are they necessarily endorsed by Gateway Mortgage Group, LLC. Now, in the studio, local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome to the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW at the Saturday, April 20th show. I am your host, Tina Mitchell.
And I am your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
You're local mortgage experts bringing in expert advice and inside knowledge on today's events in our economy and how it can affect your money. If you're listening to our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests that we have on the show today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio, our lineup today, we have Brooke Quist of Seed Intellectual Property Law Group, Strategic Advantages and Pitfalls in Patents. Ignorance is not bliss. Also in studio, Darren DeHaan and Carly Willis of DCD Property Group at the current market shift in pricing your home accordingly. Also in studio, we have Stephen Cohen of Take It On Today, The Power of Accurate Booking. Great information and great guests in studio. For more information or questions that you have with our guest, again, you can call 1-855-400-1150 or go online at themoneyhour.com. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And let's start out today's show with a little money chat.
Money.
And Keelan, I thought I would bring in today and share with our listeners about something that I'm really passionate about, an organization, Mama's Hands and the House of Hope. Mama's Hands feeds the homeless, and the House of Hope provides a stable home for women and their children as they're going through transitional so that they can get into a house of their own. And if you're looking to giving back to the community and spending some time in the homeless community in Seattle, Mama's Hands is out on the streets in Seattle the third Wednesday of every month, or actually every Wednesday of every month. I am out the third Wednesday of every month, which was this last week. So I had I wanted to bring this in because my birthday's coming up. Last year I was the big 50, and actually before I chat, you did turn 40 years old. Happy birthday, Keelan.
No, Tina, 37 every year counts. We're going to wind that back. I got a few.
Just a few years.
Just a few years, because that's going to go by really quick.
Yeah. Anyway, so my birthday was April 26th. I turned 50 last year, and I'm going to be 51 this year. A year goes by really, really quickly, but I'm going to be spending my birthday this year at the gala for the House of Hope. So I just wanted to give a shout out for that. And I had an opportunity to meet with Leslie Hancock 5 years ago, and she is the wife of Denny Hancock, which are the founders of Mama's Hands and the House of Hope, and they opened the organization in December of 1990, and I've had them in studio a couple times over the holidays to share what they're doing, but I'd asked Leslie a question, then this question would change my life forever. I asked her what was important to her outside of her successful real estate business that she was running, and she started to share the story about Mama's Hands and the House of Hope and the why behind it and how they started this amazing organization. And I was so inspired that actually Victoria here now takes our behind the scenes shot. She'll remember this. I actually picked up the phone on my way back to the office in tears. She inspired me so much behind the story and then what they were doing. And so I really wanted to do something to contribute. And I asked Leslie, what could I do, to be a contribution to the organization? And she said, well, with the success that you've had in your mortgage business, I think you might be able to share some tools and techniques with the women. So, of course, I said, yes, I would do this. Now, I was preparing for my visit with the women, and I thought to myself, showing up in my Jaguar to the home that they were living in, which was a beautiful home, by the way, but it's transitional, and they want to get out of these homes and, have a house of their own. And I thought going in and sharing my personal core practices of the importance of having a dream and being alert and embracing failures, that if I didn't open up and tell my own personal story and be vulnerable with these women, how was I going to be able to connect with them? And it was a really scary thought for me because I had never publicly shared my story before, and definitely not with any of my real estate partners. I've been in the industry for over 15 years by now. And to make it even more scary for me, Leslie, which is an industry leader in the real estate space, and you know, Keelan, majority of our business comes from real estate professionals. And she was a real influencer in our market. Well, she was going to be there that night. So that made it even, more scary for her to actually know what my story was. But I made the commitment to myself that I wasn't there for myself. I was there to make a difference in these women's life. And I had no idea how they were really going to make a difference in my life. So first time I shared my story of tragedy to triumph, I talked about how my little sister and me played our violin at Pike Place Market to help our parents keep a roof over our head. I talked about my dad being an alcoholic and how he tried taking his life when I was 12 years old. I talked about my own challenges with drugs. I talked about how my first husband was in prison and the death of our daughter, Amber. And I shared that through my own tragedies, I was able to triumph. And I believe that life throws us tragedies so we can share our story of triumph on the other side, but you must fight through your tragedies to make it to the other side. And I believe that when tragedy hits, your warrior is right there beside you. But the real tragedy is not letting your warrior out and fighting for your life so you could realize the person that you want to be or that you're meant to be. I spent 3 hours with these women, and by opening up with my story, it allowed them and created the space for them to share their story. And so I listened to them. They shared with each other. I talked about the community and how that community was really bringing them together, how they could support each other. There was lots of laughter and lots of tears. And less than a year after I left these women, the first time that I spent with them, obviously I've been part of the organization now ever since. That goes without saying. But a lot of my time is in the homeless community because of this opportunity. I wrote my book 10 months later. Which is my book, Journey with Me, which is based on my personal professional core practices and, of course, my story. I wrote my song, Dream. And now, as you know, Keelan, I'm a keynote speaker, and I get invited to share, and sometimes in front of hundreds of people, my story. So the reason I wanted to share that with you is because when you go from a place of contribution and go to help other people, you have no idea what will actually come back to you. And so I want to give a little shout out to Mama's Hands and the House of Hope and the many, many, many years that they have put into this organization and the difference that they're making not only in these women's life and the men that are out on the street, but into the people that donate their time because, you never really look back after an experience like that. So if you do want to join me on Friday, April 26th, your host, Tina Mitchell, I'll be there. I've got a table, of course. You can reach into the show and I'll get you connected so you can join the gala because it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, and for listeners out there, I mean, I met Tina, and I read your book on the plane. Remember we went to Dallas for a company event, and I read the book, and you're the real deal. You really are. It's an inspiration to anybody and such an amazing person, and there's nobody I've ever been around that brings me up like you do. You're just a positive light all the time. No matter what's happening in your life, everything is always positive, and you always bring this wonderful spirit. So,
thanks,
knowing that when I first met you and to read the book and kind of where you came from and your background, I mean, obviously all that made you who you are today, and it's an incredible journey. So, kudos to you and your journey and what you're doing. And you are a woman of action. You're out there actually doing it and giving back. So, Tina, you're amazing.
Well, thanks, Keelan. Thank you so much. Anything else that you want to share today? What are you going? You're going to go skydiving.
I am going to go skydiving on Saturday, but no, let's leave it at that. And because at the end of the day, I think there's nothing more important than what you do and your causes, and That's skydiving's cool, but this is...
All right, well, we'll talk about skydiving.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. Yeah.
Okay, all right, Keelan. Well, that's our money chat for you. Coming up next in Money Hour, strategic advantages of and pitfalls of patents. Ignorance is not bliss. Brooke Quist of CIP Law Group, right here at 1150 AM KKNW after the short break.
Doesn't it feel great when you're able to help someone in need? The joy of service to others is often taken for granted, but the reward of kindness is felt as much by the giver as it is the receiver. Sometimes it's difficult to know how and where to reach out to those in need. Mama's Hands has provided a way for you to not only lift the fallen, but to help them stand on their own, believe in themselves, and become strong enough to do the same for others. We need your help. We can change the world together, one soul at a time.
This is Denny Hancock with Mama's Hands. For more information, please check us out at mamashands.org. That's MAMMASHANDS.org. Thank you.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell. It's the Saturday, April 20th show.
And your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
Your local mortgage experts. We are here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to connect you with the guest. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, first time for our guest, we have Brooke Quist of Seed Intellectual Property Law Group, Strategic Advantages and Pitfalls in Patents. Ignorance is not bliss. Brooke, thank you so much for joining us today. So excited to have a conversation with you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And a little bit about Brooke. Brooke is a partner at Seed Intellectual Property Law Firm, LLP, with over 22 years of experience in intellectual property law. Prior to joining Seed IP, Brooke was a partner at Steptoe Johnson, LLP. Before practicing law, Mr. Quist was a senior research and design engineer in the aircraft division of Northrop Corporation. Brooke specializes in domestic and foreign intellectual property, including strategic portfolio development, patent preparation, and prosecution. Freedom to operate opinions, patent invalidity and non-infringement opinions, due diligence investigations, client counseling, licensing, and technology transfer agreements. Brooke lectures on U.S. patent practices at the University of Washington's renowned Center for Advanced Study and Research on Innovation. And I know, Brooke, that you actually just earlier this week, you did a really big speaking engagement. How'd that go?
It went well. I've been speaking quite a bit recently. I spoke at the WISPLA event, which is a Washington State Intellectual Property Association, and then also yesterday was at the Washington State Bar Association for our 24th annual IP Institute. We had lots of great speakers there, including the director of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office came and gave a great speech as well.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I know you do a lot of educating around patent, and that's why we have you here in studio. So excited to have you.
Super. Happy to be here.
Brooke, that's really cool. I'm a big fan of Shark Tank, and that's my exposure to patents where they talk about that all the time. You got a patent, is a utility patent. And I was like, wow, that's kind of important if you think about it. Why should you, for our listeners out there, care about your patent?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Shark Tank because that's most people's exposure to patent laws.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a good takeoff from there is, why do they always ask, do you have any patents? And the reason is they want to know, do you have a competitive advantage in the marketplace? Mm-hmm. Is there anything that's going to be a barrier to your potential competitors coming in and trying to do the same thing you're doing? Because there's always going to be someone who's bigger or, can do things cheaper because, of where they're located or so forth. And so if you have some way to protect what you're doing, that's going to give you an advantage, and it's going to make someone like those in Shark Tank who are investors know that it's a good investment. When I was speaking yesterday at the Washington State Bar Association, I was moderating one panel, and we had an investment banker there, and they said that of every single company that they currently had on their portfolio, they all had an IP strategy. They all either had their own patents or were licensing patents or had some way that they were protecting what they're doing. Now, that's not always going to be true. These guys were particularly focused, but it just really shows that that's going to give you an advantage. And that's not the only way it can be done. You can also, some companies will license, they're not actually doing what the patents do, but they're licensing their patents out to others. And that can be a way that someone small can compete in a big space. I had one client who was a stay-at-home mom, and she had an invention that was a pet-related device, and she was never going to be able to compete with all the big dogs in that market, no pun intended. But we were able to get a license agreement with her for one of the big companies, and then she could have that money kind of roll on in from that investment. And also, that's a way that someone small can keep from being protected against someone big, is if you license to one of the big guys, then they can fight off the other big guy instead of you having to do that.
Yeah, and we hear about that on Shark Tank too, the licensing.
Kevin O'Leary, what's going to stop me from taking your idea and squashing you like a bug? He's got endless. He's Daddy Warbucks. He's got endless pockets. So.
Yeah, those are valid questions. You want to make sure you ask those.
So, Brooke, what are some other real benefits of having patents?
So one thing that they sometimes don't get into it in as much detail in Shark Tank, but if you were following up on their after conversations, you probably would, was not just do you have patents, but are your patents really on what your technology is or whatever it is that you're selling? What's your business model? Where are you making your money? And is that where your patents are located? Are they really strategic right on your business development strategy? Because lots of people will file patents with the best of intentions, and then the direction of the company tilts a little bit. They go in a different direction, and they wind up with a bunch of patents that really aren't that valuable because they're not on what they're really doing. So, for example, I had one client that recently went through an acquisition from a multi-billion-dollar company, and as we were going through the due diligence, one of the things that the company who was acquiring them wanted to know was, can match up your patents with your product. Show me where the patents and where these claims match up with what you're actually doing, with what you're selling, with how it. And if you have that, that's great. That's powerful. If you don't have that, then it's nice, and it can. Those patents can give, some good feelings, some goodwill, some confidence to your engineers or other technical people, and that might be great, but it's not near as powerful as if they're really protecting your product. Another thing to look at. Sorry to keep going here, but another thing to look at is, are you really at a choke point in the marketplace? Are you, with what you're protecting with your patent, is that the only way to do something? Because if it is, that's going to be a lot more powerful. If you are doing something and you get a patent on it, let's say a way to encrypt a file, there's 20 different ways to do that, maybe even more. So just because you've protected your way that you're doing it, your competitors can do something that's equivalent, that's different than what you're doing, but achieves the same effect. So that patent isn't going to be near as powerful. But if you've got the only way that something can be done, that's something that's really going to give you a big advantage.
So, Brooke, would you say kind of like an estate plan and your financial plan and your taxes? I mean, you're looking at these things on an annual basis. Is that important when you have a patent as well, that you're having it reviewed by your attorney to make sure that any changes that are happening, that you're kind of, looking at that, or is that not necessary?
So it's a little bit different than that, but let's start out and explain that the patent prosecution, the process during which you get the patent, is a several-year period. So the patent office likes to say on average it's 3 years. So let's just go with that for sake of argument. And it may be, I think they like to estimate 14 months before you get your first official review of that patent. And then usually that first official review, they tell you that you can't have the patent for one or more reasons. And actually that you kind of want to get that. If you get the first action allowance, it's kind of like if you get a new job and you ask for a salary and they go, yes, right away. You're like, I didn't ask for enough, did I?
Yes.
So usually, not always, but usually you're trying to ask for enough that the first thing you get is a refusal, and then you go back and you explain to them why you're different than what's out there and why you should get that patent, and then you go through that back and forth process. During that year or 2 or 3, you should be in contact, your patent attorney, and the client, the company or the engineers or whoever is taking charge of that reign should be in contact and letting your patent attorney know how your product has developed in that period of time.
Okay, yeah, of course.
So that when you have those opportunities to amend your claim section as you go through the patent prosecution process, that you can keep it on focus. Or you might find that, if, unfortunately that product didn't make it. The company went another direction. And then, so you may not want to pursue that. Or you may want to get the patent and see if there's an opportunity to license it or sell it to someone else. But by keeping abreast of what's happening during that course, you can make sure that you keep it on focus.
Yeah.
Another thing to account for is maybe your product that you're making in-house is different or stopped, but your competitor is doing something. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that you try and get something that's going to cover your competitors, assuming that you've got support for that in your patent, so that you've got an advantage in the marketplace.
Got it.
That's really interesting. I noticed on Shark Tank, you have somebody that comes in with a product, and then they'll mention their patent, and then all of a sudden the sharks light up like, oh, wait a second, because it's all about how your patent is written and designed. And some of these business owners that are pitching it have no idea on how valuable just their patent is. Their product is worthless, but this patent and the way it's verbalized is priceless. So they get all excited about that and show a completely different angle. In your opinion, Brooke, what makes a patent more valuable than the next?
Well, like we were saying there, partially it's about does your patent cover actual technology that's either you're using or other people want to use. Mm-hmm. So if you have a patent and it's on technology that's either not being utilized by you or by someone else, that's going to be less valuable. Mm-hmm. The easiest way to put a valuation, to put a price on something, is if there's an actual marketplace for it. So if you can say, oh, I'm selling these products and I can attribute these sales directly to my patent because I'm selling and my competitor's not, and the reason I'm selling is because I've got a patented feature. That's the easiest way to do it.
Makes sense.
But there's other times when someone like the sharks you talk about, or the investment banker I had on the panel yesterday, will say, oh, that person has patents and they don't realize how valuable they are. Mm-hmm. So they will sometimes, when that company goes under or it needs financial, is in financial distress, they'll have an opportunity to buy those up and then apply them to an area that they know has potential value.
Wow, that's sneaky.
That's really sneaky. So, Brooke, what about dangers, the biggest danger when it comes to patent law?
Yeah, so the biggest dangers that a lot of small businesses and independent inventors don't know is that you can actually bar yourself from getting a patent if you don't act quick enough. Now, with other types of intellectual property like trademarks and copyrights, you can have your copyrighted material, like your website or your book or whatever, out for years, decades, and then protect it. Then go and file for protection. Same with your trademark.
Like my coaching program, I had 5 years before I did mine.
Yeah, because you get common law protection, and it actually gets stronger during that period. Mm-hmm. But with patents, when you disclose your idea, or you sell it, or you offer it for sale, that starts a 1-year clock ticking. And at the end of that year, you bar yourself from getting a patent on your own technology.
Oh my gosh.
So never. You're just done.
Yeah, at least on that version. We have had cases where clients have come in and they haven't known that. And we say, well, 1.0 is gone, but what about 2.0?
Okay, so there's some ways around that.
You're still inventing, right?
Yes.
They go, oh yeah, we're still inventing.
Yeah.
So we can come in, and if the changes that they're making are significant enough that they're patentable on their own, then we can come in and help later on. But it's much better in the beginning, and that's why we always try and encourage people, even if you don't know if you have something that's patentable, come to me or other reputable patent attorney will usually, give you a free consultation and say, hey, do I have something here that I need to worry about that I should try and protect. So let's say you just have this new idea or this new concept or invention. Mm-hmm. The first thing that people usually want to do is talk about it. They want to tell an advisor, or they want to tell a potential investor. So how can they protect themselves? So the two main ways people can do that is either by using a non-disclosure agreement, or by using what's called a provisional patent. Both of them have limitations, but they both are far better than nothing. The problems with non-disclosure agreements is that a lot of investors and venture capital people just won't sign them. There can also be some issues as to, what's your recourse if someone violates it. You only have a contract recourse, you don't have patent recourse. And then with a provisional application, that gives you a 1-year placeholder during which to go back and file a real patent on that. So you can file those usually pretty quickly, and at a fraction of the cost of an actual patent. And then you can have some protection to go and talk to whoever you want to talk about and know that you're not going to be shooting yourself in the foot. Some dangers there, though, is you're only protecting what you actually file on. So if you file a real short provisional and then go and talk beyond what's covered in there, everything beyond what was covered is
fair game
for you to be shooting yourself in the foot again.
Oh, bummer.
Wow. Well, Brooke, thank you so much. I wish we had more time with you. You have so much information around this, and I just really appreciate you coming in and sharing with our listeners.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks
We'll
for having me.
have you back.
Sounds good.
And coming up next in the Money Hour, the current market shift in pricing your home accordingly. We have Darren Dahan and Carly Willis of DCD Property Group right here at 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.
You may have noticed our community is experiencing a homeless crisis like never before. But what you might not know is that homeless families, especially mothers with children, are on the rise. They're one of the fastest growing groups right now. They are unsafe on the streets, and although they may not be visible, they are out there and they need our help. Mama's Hands is changing lives in our community through the House of Hope. It's a shelter for women and children in need. House of Hope provides not only support services, but a home-like environment for these families. After they graduate from the program, House of Hope staff continue to keep the families engaged and supported through a whole year-long aftercare program.
I'm Kimberly Jackson, Director at Mama's Hands. We would love to have you get more involved in helping homeless families and individuals in crisis in our community. Please visit our website at mamashands.org. That's MAMMASHANDS.org, mamashands.org. Thank you.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, April 20th show. I am your host, Tina Mitchell.
And I am your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
Your local mortgage experts. We bring in each week the best of the best in studio to share their expert advice. And if you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to connect you with the guests that we have on the show or answer any questions that you might have. You can call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, we have Darren Dahan and Carly Willis of DCD Property Group, the current market shift and pricing your home accordingly. Welcome back, you guys.
Thanks for having us back.
And a little bit about the two of them. With Darren and Carly's 17 years in the industry, clients trust their expertise and secure the right project for their needs. They pride themselves on using their own skills in advertising, budgeting, negotiating, planning, and sales to best serve their clients. Their goal is to become your personal real estate consultant for life.
Darren and Carly, super excited to have you guys. You guys are great friends of mine, so it's always nice to have good friends. All of our guests are friends, but you guys are especially friends here in studio. I was reading something this morning, and it sounds like there's some shifts in the market, and I would love, with your guys' experience, I'd love to get your feedback on these changes and shifts in the market and what you guys are seeing out there in the battlefield.
Yeah, I'd say it's good to see you, too.
Thanks, buddy.
Good friend of mine. Yeah, I'd say we've definitely seen a slight cooling in the market, mainly due to increase in inventory, including I've noticed a lot of stale listings hanging around that were priced too high, even when the market was at its peak, and have now, and even more so that since the market has shifted.
People just sitting in the past, like they missed the boat, and they're like, no, I'm just not going to change my price. This is what it is. But stuff's not moving. You better probably lower your price a little bit.
Yeah.
So Darren, we're still stuck on that.
What if we take it back a few months, Darren? What have you seen your buyers dealing with out there?
I actually think it's been great news for buyers. More supply, less demand. This tends to happen this time of year because sellers believe that waiting until springtime will be their in their best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the days of throwing out inspections and other contingencies in the hopes of winning a property are nearly gone.
So, and that's so true, right? It's like in history, the springtime thing. Everybody's like, wait, but the market's changed. So, what about seeing the market beginning to balance out? I've heard some rumors of a balancing of the market. Do we think we maybe have a shift of the guard here from the seller to buyer world?
Yeah, well, I don't know if a full shift, but I believe that it's beginning to balance out. We've certainly found that buyers are beginning to have a better shot at finding their ideal home, as opposed to just hoping they get
home
anything.
Period.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But I've been excited that the buyers I've worked with have been having a better shot at getting the property they have their heart set on, as opposed to just throwing something out at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's very disheartening for my buyers when we throw out 5-6 offers and just hoping one will be accepted.
Yeah, heard
Yeah,
that.
it was a really crazy market to come out of what we came out of. But it's interesting when the market does shift a little, because that's what we've seen it do, shift a little.
Sure.
A lot of conversations start out there, and then you've got the media that tags in, because media does sell. We try not to sell fear here on the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, but the reality is fear does sell, and so you hear a lot of negative, fear-based news out there. And so even with a small shift, you hear people talk about, oh my gosh, we're going to have a bubble and this is it. The next crisis is coming. So how do you talk with your buyers and sellers when you hear that in the conversation?
Yeah, I'd say, it still comes up once in a while about, a bubble bursting and so forth, but it just hasn't been as big a concern lately. We're seeing a cooling of the market, certainly, but nothing like we saw, a decade ago. We're simply returning to a normal market. We're coming in for a soft landing, not a crash like before. The previous housing market was fueled by demand created by lenient mortgage standards, and as you're well aware, that nowadays they're much more strict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's a behind the scenes meaning when you're in the industry. I mean, we know that there's not a crash coming, and we haven't reached never going to see appreciation again. Nobody can predict what the market's going to do, but it's just interesting when you're not behind the scenes and seeing and been in the industry as long as we have. There's so much opportunity here in when you look at employment. And I always say, if you have a prediction of what you think employment's going to do, then you can predict the same for real estate, because real estate always follows employment. And so if you just take a look at our area and where we're at with all the employment opportunity, then you add in the interest rates and the cost of money continuing to be so low, it's really an exciting time to get out there.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
For sure.
That's an interesting thing, Tina, that you mentioned. I mean, it's quite the opposite now on our end. Just go inside there. You need experts. You need experts like me and Tina that know how to cross your T's and dot your I's, because they're not playing around now. You need to document everything, and a lot can go wrong. There's a lot of hoops and behind the scenes people don't see that we go through to ensure that things land successfully and close successfully, hence the reputation that we have. There's a lot of value to that when agents know that it's going to go flawlessly on the financing end. So
it's very nice to work with a really great lender.
Yeah.
Super important.
Well, thanks again. Another shout out for the team, because, definitely couldn't do it with everybody behind the scenes of our business.
Yeah.
And so shout out to Lisa and Mark that really coordinate and make sure that everything runs smoothly on the closing process.
So, Carly, we need to hear from you here. You need to join us. So,
do you?
Yes, we do. So, why don't we talk a little bit about what changes that you've seen from your sellers in this market at this point?
We've already seen quite a big uptick in the acceptance of contingent offers. They were pretty well unheard of recently, and now sellers are becoming just more flexible when considering offers. I think because there's less competition for homes, at least for the last few months. Who knows what the spring is going to hold. But for that, sellers are just more readily considering contingencies and offers, as well as considering buyers' closing costs as well, whether they want to cover those or not. A lot more buyers are asking because they know that they can. They have a bit more leverage.
Yeah, and I think the confusing thing for buyers, and I see this on from the lending side, that you really don't. It is really neighborhood specific, and also it's price specific, meaning how the agent's pricing the home, because you can have a really hot neighborhood, but if the agent is pricing it too high, then they're not getting any offers, and people are wondering why it's been sitting on the market. But then the house that's relatively close in the same neighborhood has multiple offers. So it's a little bit more difficult in this market because you're not really sure how to strategize unless you're working with an expert that knows. And so, talk with your agent. Your agent's going to let you know if the seller is going to be, if the home is priced to where it's going to make sense that the seller is going to pay cost. If not, maybe you increase the price to get them to do that, right?
Right. Well, and it's not always the agent's fault. I have to throw this out there because we did mention this earlier. A lot of the sellers are just hanging on to the past market. Yeah. And they think that they can get 20, 40, 60, 80,000 more for their home than they actually can.
But wouldn't you agree,
still.
Carly, as a real estate agent, is letting the seller know the reality? Yeah,
but whether they listen to you or not, that's the difference. You can be an excellent agent, but whether the sellers actually listen, that's totally different.
Yeah. Well, Carly, let's talk a little bit about price. So what are you seeing with the actual price, and where's the market at?
Sure. Well, as we know, price appreciation has been pretty well nuts the last few years. But we're seeing that slow to more normal levels, which is really nice. There's still some sellers that are hanging on to the heyday, and their homes are pretty easy to spot because they're still sitting on the market and all their neighbors' homes have sold.
Yeah.
The market doesn't lie, you know.
Nope.
You got to your home is
really
worth
doesn't.
what it doesn't, right? Your home's worth what it sells for.
Exactly.
At that exact moment.
Exactly.
Forget about the past. Don't worry about the future. It's now. Right?
And the thing that's strange is because numbers are numbers. I mean, you can see exactly what properties are selling for right in your area to know exactly what the value is going to be. So
statistics don't lie.
No, they
That's
don't.
right. The numbers don't lie. Carly, let's talk about DCD Property Group, your guys' awesome team that you have. What do you guys do to help prospective buyers and sellers?
Well, to start, we do offer pretty extensive buyer and seller guides that are updated every quarter. So they give tips and tactics for buyers to get the best deal, and for sellers, tips on how to prepare your home for sale. It touches on the importance of decluttering, staging, use of color, and pricing. It talks about the pitfalls of overpricing, which is really important to pay attention to. But small things make a big difference. There's links on our website to the spring version of these now at dcdpropertygroup.com.
Wonderful. And I know you guys provide a lot, a lot of value. What are some of the other things that you're doing for your buyers and sellers?
Well, one thing that makes us unique is we are a team, so we're almost always available. At least one of us is available at all times. So we do that. And then another thing that we really pride ourselves on is the seller exposure for seller clients, And we promote our listings with individual websites and landing pages, in addition to our own company website, multiple social media outlets, including my base guide for Joint Base Lewis McChord. Go military, woohoo.
All right.
As well as some less techie advertising like direct mail, Craigslist, and others. We're also incorporating more video, as we mentioned outside there, because statistics, again, don't lie. And video is just, it's really booming on social media, and it far exceeds all the simple pictures, posts, and links just to web pages.
Yeah, and video really connects emotionally, and that's what it's about. Selling anything, but especially when you're selling a home, is to be able to emotionally connect with people. So I love that.
Well, if I may, I have to say too, you guys are old school in the way that
thanks, Keelan.
Well, no, in this good way, and I have it at heart too. I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and get things done, and I know Darren especially and Carly as well. You guys get it done. Are on the phone every day, are relentless at getting your way.
Yes.
And that's what you got to. That part don't think will ever die. You got to pick up the phone. You got to make sure that you're talking to everybody and really getting that voice to voice. Like, hey, this is what's happening. This is how we're going to do it. That's that aggressive touch that I think really gives you an edge in the market. So touche to you guys.
Thank you.
On that one. I think it's awesome.
Well, thanks you guys so much for coming back in studio, and look forward to having you back again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Coming up next in the Money Hour, the power of accurate books. We have Stephen Cohen of Take It On Today, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, after this short break.
Doesn't it feel great when you're able to help someone in need? The joy of service to others is often taken for granted, but the reward of kindness is felt as much by the giver as it is the receiver. Sometimes it's difficult to know how and where to reach out to those in need. Mama's Hands has provided a way for you to not only lift the fallen, but to help them stand on their own, believe in themselves, and become strong enough to do the same for others. We need your help. We can change the world together, one soul at a time.
This is Denny Hancock with Mama's Hands. For more information, please check us out at mamashands.org. That's MAMMASHANDS.org. Thank you.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell. It's the Saturday, April 20th show.
And your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
Your local mortgage experts. We are here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. But we're here to answer any questions or connect you with the amazing guests that we have on the show. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, we have Stephen Cohen of Take It On Today, the power of accurate books. Stephen, thank you so much. First time in studio. We're really happy to have you here.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And a little bit about Stephen. The most important thing you should know about Stephen is that he is passionate about business owners feeling empowered and making well-informed financial decisions with a partner that they can trust. Stephen is committed to serving small and mid-sized businesses by offering them 24/7 financial services on or off-site. He is flexible and provides his expertise by really listening to what his clients' needs are. Whether you are starting a new business or have been in business for a while, Stephen will support your bookkeeping needs with a perfect blend of expertise and personal service. His goal is to be a virtual resource for your business and create a powerful partnership.
So, Stephen, I mean, me and Tina know why bookkeeping is important. We see things.
And I know not to do it. I need to hire somebody else to do it for me.
Yeah, that's one. Going back to one time you. Yeah.
Embrace your strengths, iron out your weaknesses.
You nailed it. There we go. Stephen, tell us, why do we need a bookkeeper?
Well, the truth is that there's a lot of business owners out there that would rather not keep their books, that they just love doing what they do, and they would do their books based on what's in the bank account, and when bills come, they pay them. But the real reason you need to do it is you have to do it for the regulatory outside agencies, the IRS, the Department of Revenue, all the payroll agencies. That's the reason to do it for them. But for yourself, you get the information. You get really the straight story about how your business is doing, and you can get it on a regular basis and make decisions. So that's the real reason to do it for yourself.
Yeah, and kind of like in the mortgage industry, I mean, whether you love doing bookkeeping or not, I will say that I definitely do not. But some business owners may love that. They may love the hands-on of being able to manage that process. But the reality is you're a business owner, and whatever expertise that you have in your profession, there's only so much time in the day. So being able to be an expert in that and a bookkeeping, which is not your profession, there's not enough time. And so I love that, Stephen, really being able to protect your business by making sure that you're doing what you need to do. So, Stephen, what are the most important things to think about when deciding how to set up bookkeeping?
Simplicity. It's amazing how folks make it so complicated, but they don't realize that the reason they're doing bookkeeping for their own information is also to do a tax return at the end of the year. And if you've ever taken a look at your tax return, it's the simplest thing in the world. I brought in this amount of money. Cost of goods was this. Payroll, there's 10, 15, 20 at most buckets. And then you have a bottom line. So why make your books any more complicated than that? And there's one pet peeve I have, which I'm going to share with folks right now. And that is there are a number of people that have amazing point of sale systems that give them all this valuable information. They take their money through the point of sale system, and they think that they need to now go duplicate the point of sale system in their bookkeeping. And you absolutely do not. They can run side by side. You can have 20 different products you sell in a store, and in your bookkeeping, it all just goes under retail sales.
So efficient, yeah.
The old KISS method never fails, right? So why should you not do your own bookkeeping? Like specifically, what is your thoughts on people that are trying to just do their own books?
I think it's a great idea, especially in the beginning of your business, because you really can learn and you can get a handle on it. And the truth is, business is about numbers. You know, a bookkeeper, $65, $75 an hour. And if you have the time, you do it. But it gets to a point where you start to look at yourself, and Tina, more than anyone knows this, is you really have to value your time. I mean, a business owner should think their time is worth a couple $100 an hour, probably, in my opinion. So then it gets to the point that if the money's there and I understand the bookkeeping and I can make sure I can trust and verify what the bookkeeper's doing, then it might be time to let it go.
Yeah, and that's go ahead, Keelan.
No, sorry.
You can interrupt me anytime you want to.
Oh, thanks, Tina.
I do it my share of times.
Once in a while, once in a blue moon. You know, it's all about the data, too. How do you project your success and future and where you're really at in your business if you don't even know what's actually going on? I mean, in my business, Tina's business, we're always looking at where our time is best used and what we can do to improve. If you don't even know your temperature, how do you know, like, where you're at and what you need to do, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And, you kind of already answered my question, but when do you know when to hire a bookkeeper? So you talk about when you first open a business, it's a good idea. But if you're talking to people that are listening to the show right now that have not had a bookkeeper for years in their business, what are they feeling that they know they should take that leap?
Well, I like to be a little of a wise guy because I'm
kind of a wise guy,
I'm back
Stephen.
east, and in the moment right here, one of the great ways you know it's time to need a bookkeeper is when they threaten to call this man 2 spaces over to my right.
The attorney.
Vincent.
I mean, if you're married, your spouse will tell you when it's time because you will literally be working on your business 24/7.
Yeah.
You'll be going home you'll be doing the bookkeeping at home because you'll be too busy during the day, and they'll be like, "Come on, I want to be with you. I want to hang out."
Yeah.
Tell
us, Stephen, what is real-time bookkeeping?
Well, I'd love to say that that's something that I created, but it really isn't. But what it did was create an entire new career for me in bookkeeping because technology, you basically can connect your bank accounts, your credit cards, everything right into QuickBooks Online. This is not an advertisement for them, but it sounds like it. And every day you just click refresh, and everything feeds in every day in real time.
Yeah, and technology is so amazing in the spirit of one-timing. It's amazing how technology is so one-timing, not just for our business, but for our personal lives. I mean, gosh, we don't even have to go into the grocery store anymore if we don't want to. And it's going to continue to get, even better as time goes on. So, Stephen, what is Bookkeeping Plus consist of?
That I did create. I'm glad you asked.
I always have such great questions.
I don't like to make bookkeeping sound any more elegant and complex than it is. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a jeweler. Bookkeeping is more or less data entry, in my opinion, if you learn it and you do it right. What Plus is if you've owned a business before and you understand business models, what's an appropriate percentage for cost of goods, cost of occupancy, cost of labor, marketing. You're doing the bookkeeping, but I do it with an awareness because I understand multiple different types of business models. Then I'm able to go back to the business owner and say, this percentage looks too high. They don't often know why they're not making money, but it's sort of doing the bookkeeping with an awareness of what is the business doing. Just not seeing a transaction, putting in its little bucket. It's another level of awareness.
Love that.
That's important data. People just get this wild idea of
I love data.
Me too. It's amazing. Like you can figure a lot out by your data and know where you're at. I've had 5 buddies who are like, let's go open a bar. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool, but like, do you know anything about profits or like where's your moneymaker? What do you know? No, we don't know anything about it. So it sounds like this Plus consists more of like a coaching aspect to your business. Is that correct? You
Absolutely,
coach clients?
Yeah. The other part of my business besides bookkeeping is that I'm actually a licensed real estate agent in Washington as a business broker.
Oh, nice.
So I help people sell their business, which means I know how to value a business, so I know what a set of books should look like to give you the highest value when you want to sell your business. And really, from the day you open your doors, you should be thinking about selling your business just because it makes you run it in a particular way, that you make that bottom line look good and it looks valuable to the outside market, even if you never sell it and you hand it down to your kids or you lose it in the divorce.
Well, and we buy. Love how everything just ties in. We strategically invite into studio the best of the best. That's what this show is about. And, what an amazing thing. I'm really a believer in having multiple businesses, but having those multiple business all connect with each other. I own a mortgage software, but it's connected to my mortgage business. I have a coaching program, but it's connected to my mortgage practice. And so I love that, Stephen, that your bookkeeping is you're helping people sell businesses, how to set it up. And so, really when you're a shout out and something to think about from your host here is when you're thinking about a bookkeeper and who to hire and what to look for somebody that can actually advise you through the entire process. So, I love that, Stephen. Tip for small, because I know you really well. We're part of a same networking group together, and Jeanette here in studio. It's kind of fun. We've got a little our little mini group in here, and I know your wife very well, Susie, and she's a business owner herself, and you work with a lot of small business owners. What would be a tip that you would have for a small business owner, something that's really important to them and continue to with growth?
Read the most important book that I think. There's been a lot written. It's called The E-Myth. It's a throwback kind of book, but it basically talks about what you just spoke about. People have something they love to do, so then they think they're going to go do that as their business, but they forget that they're now going into the sales, marketing, and financial management business, whatever you do. So you need to learn and grow those skills. Even if you're making a pie, you're really in the sales, marketing, and financial and maybe people management business, and that's dramatically different.
So true.
It's been bugging me, Stephen, this whole time. The question sitting in the back of my head.
Is that why you're moving so much?
I am. I'm a fidgeter. That's just what I do.
Is Brooklyn, New York the answer?
No. Go Hawks, I guess. I don't know. But I was going to ask, what are some examples of, if you were thinking about being a business owner, what do you see as profitability? It could be anything. Like I've heard teriyaki shops, bars, like any, people have these crazy ideas. What is a good business, do you think?
The right business these days, I think, is hard to find people, but are service businesses. Because obviously technology is going crazy. Yeah. Brick and mortar's really hard. Restaurant, food management costs is tough. But I sold a business last year. Basically a guy who literally bought a couple of garage sweeping trucks and all these high rises that were around right here, downtown Bellevue, downtown Seattle. He sends a crew out at night. They sweep, they clean. This is a service that's never going away. Yeah. Seal coating. There's blacktop everywhere. Car repairs. Nobody wants to be in the car repair business. Plumbing, electrician, they're not sexy. Yeah. There's no apps, but these things are needed. Buildings
What about landscaping?
Yeah, that's another good one. But I'd rather be in California.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. I wouldn't be a landscaper, but you can own a company and have somebody else go out and do the job, right? So, Stephen, what about a biggest mistake that you see entrepreneurs make?
It's doing their books in the beginning, but not understanding the basics. Buy QuickBooks for Dummies. I read it. I'm not embarrassed to say. And not understanding what a journal entry is. And that's kind of, fancy bookkeeping talk. But CPAs...
Is that an explanation for everything that you're...
No, CPAs do them. It's the way you move around. So people just get overwhelmed by their books, and then they just make mistakes. And then one mistake just leads to another, just not understanding basically what double entry bookkeeping is that was created back in the Roman times.
Got it.
So when you hop into a business and walk us through that a little bit. You take a look at the books. Can you share with us like a success story and kind of what that looks like? If somebody takes you on, where do we go from here?
Well, it all depends on where they start. Some folks are, like I have somebody I'm engaging with right now where they've not really done any bookkeeping. They're just doing the bank account system version. So you can do nothing and do business all year and then go on your bank website and download it all into Microsoft Excel and figure it all out. But they want to get into real time. So QuickBooks Online, I hate to say it again, but pretty much those are the only folks I use. I get them on QuickBooks Online. I set up their chart of accounts. The beauty of QuickBooks Online is I'm on the telephone with them and we're saying, okay, look, here's what's going on. We're looking at the same thing at the same time, and I don't have to be in a room with them, and we can do whenever they want. So all of the success stories revolve around QuickBooks Online, where they can go on there. And they're ultimately, half of them, when they do go on, a lot don't, because they just feel so confident and comfortable that I have it.
Yeah.
When they do go on, they go like, oh my God, this is so easy. I can find this information. Wow.
That's so awesome. And I always say when building a team, the biggest thing is to be able to trust and have confidence that they're doing their job. And you need to have a system set up to where you can see from the back end and monitor if there's something that needs help with. And it's kind of the same thing. I mean, they've got all of the data. They can see everything that's happening. So they've got that confidence and not have to worry about that you're doing everything at the very highest level. So, Stephen, as we're wrapping up our time here today, what would be a final share that you would have for our listeners?
Let's move on to the bling, because this is the exciting part.
Oh, yeah, the bling.
This gorgeous woman to
well,
my
we first
right.
talk about divorce, and then we talk about bookkeeping, and now we're going to bring in the middle, the warm and fuzzy bling. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us in studio. It was a real pleasure to have you here, and of course, looking forward to having you come back.
Thank you for having me.
And this is your host, Tina Mitchell.
And I am Keelan Harvey,
your local mortgage expert, signing off for the day. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we look forward to talking more money next Saturday right here on 1150 AM KKNW.
Tina Mitchell, MLO 145420, and Keelan Harvey, MLO 1330075, are licensed loan originators with Gateway Mortgage Group, LLC, and MLS 7233. The views expressed by the speakers on the preceding program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Gateway Mortgage Group, LLC, nor are they necessarily endorsed by Gateway Mortgage Group, LLC.